Haven't seen you around in a while. Where have you been? New look, you found your style.
The Commission's decision to approve or deny a site plan or preliminary subdivision plat is the final decision by the city unless the applicant appeals to the City Council. Please contact the city clerk or community development staff for details on council hearings. The applicant will be given 10 minutes to present the request. Proponents and then opponents from the public are then allowed to speak in that order, with each speaker being allowed a maximum of 5 minutes. The applicant is then allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal. The hearing will then be closed and the commission will discuss and vote on the issue. All comments are to be germane to the item under consideration and speakers are to maintain a courteous manner. Items listed on the consent portion of the agenda will not be individually discussed and will be considered for approval in accordance with the recommendation in the staff report unless an individual present or a member of the commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately under the public hearing agenda. The City of Des Moines is pleased to provide accommodations to individuals or groups with disabilities and encourages participation in the city government. To better serve you when possible, please notify us at least 3 business days in advance at 515-283-4209 should special accommodations be required. Assistant listening devices are available for meetings in the council chambers. Planning and Zoning Commission meetings are broadcast on Mediacom Cable Channel 7. Is that still correct? Channel 7? Okay. For customers with that service. The broadcast is also streamed live in real time on the City of Des Moines website at www.dmgov.org. Click on the Watch Live link. We have just concluded a report on the Capitol East and Capitol Park neighborhood plan updates, and so we're ready for a roll call. We have a quorum, I'm informed, and so we now will approve the minutes of the March, I believe it was 18th meeting. There's a motion. Is there a second? Who did the? And it was seconded by Dory. So the motion to approve the minutes of the March 18th meeting were properly moved and seconded. All in favor, please signify by raising March 6th. March 6th, thank you. Please signify by raising your right hand to approve. Are there any abstentions? Is there any opposition? All right, thank you, Kathy, and that's been recorded. At this time, we will consider the consent items. Does the commission have any items that they would wish to place on consent items 1 through 5? And 5K on the agenda is revised from consent number 5, and it is a revised staff proposal. Okay, is there any addition or correction to the consent? Yes, and is there anybody in the public? As you recall, we do not generally have discussion on consent items, but we will ask if there is anyone in the audience that does wish to pull one of these items for public discussion.
Should we consider 6 for consent?
That's what I was thinking. Why don't I read through these and then, yes, we'll add number 6 just to make sure everyone is familiar with these items. Number 1 is a review of the amendment to the Des Moines 2020 Community Character Plan to adopt the Capitol Hill, or the Capitol East Neighborhood Plan update as an element, replacing the previously adopted Capitol East Neighborhood Action Plan. Consent item number 2 is a review of an amendment to the Des Moines 2020 Community Character Plan to adopt the Capitol Park Neighborhood Plan update as an element, replacing the previously adopted Capitol Park Neighborhood Action Plan. Consent item number 3 is a request from the Gabus Family Properties, the owner represented by James Christensen, the officer for review and approval of a site plan, Charles Gabus Ford, under design guidelines for vehicle display lots on property located at 4545 and 4515 Merle Hay Road. Okay. Number 4 is a request from the Vendors Cycle and Motorsport, Inc., the purchaser represented by Michael DeMoss, the officer for review and approval of the site plan Vendors Cycle under design guidelines for vehicle display lots on property located at 1500 East Army Post Road. Consent item number 5 is a city-initiated request to vacate the following segments of right-of-way in the vicinity of Southeast 5th and Maury Street. And then the revised 5K was to receive a proposal from the Parks and Recs Board to dedicate land in the vicinity of Southeast 5th and Maury Street as parkland for relocated Allen Park. And there has been a commission request to add item number 6, which is a request from East Des Moines Storage, represented by Jerome Bassman, the officer for review and approval of a site plan 2012 East 3rd Rehabilitation under design guidelines in C3B districts. What is the, is there a motion then to, oh, yes, I'm sorry. Is there anyone here then to speak in the public on any of those items that I just read? Seeing none, is there a motion to add 6 to the consent list?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Does the applicant agree to the conditions?
For number 6?
Okay, thank you.
So staff is saying yes, that they do. So are you moving that 6 be added? Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor of moving item number 6 to the consent items, please signify by raising your right hand. Is there any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, and so is there a motion to?
Consent.
Thank you. Need a second? Removing consents. Okay, thanks, Jean. So you got those, Kathy? All those in favor of moving the consent items number 1 through now 6, please signify by raising your right hand. It's unanimous.
Will you note, please, that I have to abstain from number 3, all others being
Okay,
affirmative?
got that? Okay. And then per the request of the owner, item number 12, the owner is asking that to be continued to our April 17th board meeting. Okay, I'll read it out just in case anyone was here for that. That was a request from the Lee Family Properties, represented by Andy Lee, who is the officer for review and approval of a site plan under design guidelines in the MPC districts on property located at 3625 Ingersoll. So this item, the request of the owner will be on our next agenda, which is April 17th. Was there anybody from the public that was here tonight for that item? Okay. Is there a motion then to continue that to the next meeting? Thanks, Marty. Second? Make sure Kathy has those. Okay, so it's been properly moved and seconded that item number 12, the Leaf Family Properties, will be continued at our April 17th meeting. All those in favor, please state by raising your right hand. Is there any opposition? Great, thank you. All right, so now we have to open the public hearing on item number 7. This is a request from Jerry Hoots, who is the owner, to rezone property located at 2428 Southwest 9th Street. And so, are we ready to?
Yes. Chair, members of the
Proceed.
commission, Jason Van Essen with the city's planning staff. This is an aerial identifying the subject property along the Southwest 9th corridor on the west side of the street. Property is zone C1. You can see the area around. We have a mix of C1 zoning, little R4, R160. We have a couple of commercial buildings on the site. There is a card going around from the neighborhood association, but with regard to the response map, within the notice boundary, we didn't receive any responses. Some photographs of the site, the property of the subject business, or the building that the business is in, but there's other buildings on the site. I'm not sure I said that correctly. This is a case where we had a business that was operating under our previous standards for liquor sales. And with the adoption of the new standards, once their liquor license expired, they were obligated to conform. In order to do what they wish here, they need to have C2 zoning. And so that is why they're before you tonight and not just directly going to the Board of Adjustment for a conditional use permit for liquor sales. And then also, as noted in the staff report, there is some separation issues. The property to the west is the school grounds, and so it's within the separation requirements. So they're, not only would they need the conditional use if they had the correct zoning, but they would also need relief of that. While it's easy to look at this and think about the existing business and the kind of things that we would at the Zoning Board of Adjustment, really tonight what the question for you is, does rezoning this land make sense from a land use standpoint independent of the individual circumstance? And we're suggesting that it does not. This area, the character of the area with regard to a mix of residential uses, small C1 neighborhood retail type uses, we feel that that's what makes sense here. That's why the area is zoned the way it is and developed in that fashion. And so because of that, we are recommending denial of the request. Be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, any questions for staff?
Thank you.
Ready is the applicant here tonight with us. If you could step forward to the microphone and state your name and address, please, sir.
My name is Richard Bartlett. I'm the owner of Southside Tobacco and Liquor. Mr. Hoots couldn't be here tonight. His wife is undergoing surgery and had to be with her this evening.
And your address, please, sir.
My home address is 3838 31st Street, and the business address is 2424 Southwest 9th Street.
Thank you.
Beginning, I'd like to give you a little bit of general information. I've been in business since late 1996. Our hours of operation are 9 to 9 on Monday and 9 to 10 Tuesday through Saturday. We are closed on Sunday so I can spend time with my family. We don't stay open late because, well, I don't want the problems that come with late night liquor sales. And And I think that's a model I've adopted the entire time I've been there. We're a mom and pop business. It's me and my wife are the only two employees. We're lifelong residents of Des Moines. Since I opened in 1996, we got a beer and wine license in 1999 and moved across the parking lot to our current location in 2003 with a full liquor license. And in that 15 years with the liquor license, we have no violations of compliance. In that time, I've gone from being a single man with a girlfriend to my girlfriend is now my wife, and we have 3 children. I've gone from a person who rented a house to a person who owns a house. My 2 children, Barry and Richie, 2 of my children, Barry and Richie, are here today. My oldest, TJ, could not be here. He is currently in Ames playing a game for the Lincoln High School soccer team. That coincidentally is where all my children will be going to school, as long as I'm still in the district. Part of the problem with the city seems to be that is the amount of food and liquor we sell. When we first moved over in 2003, we tried putting in food, but we have a discount supermarket down the street, and when you're trying to sell someone a can of chicken noodle soup for 79 cents and it's 39 cents down the street, you just cannot compete. With respect to the school, I've talked to the resource officer has been at my store. I believe she's been there about 10 years, and she's been there once over that 10 years. I have talked to her in the past, and she assured, and I asked her if we had any problems. She assured me there was no problems with our business, and that most of the problems that she does have with Lincoln lie to the south in the area of the McDonald's and everything down there. With respect to the property line, as you see here, that is a wooded area where we meet Lincoln High School. There is no direct access. In fact, where this line is at the precipice of about a 20-foot cliff. In fact, you cannot even see my business from Lincoln High School. And that's where I believe the problem with the city lines in the back there, not along Southwest 9th Street. As to the economic impact, I do have a lease that runs through November of 2015, and if I lose my liquor license, I would probably be bankrupt. This is the only way I have of supporting my family. As I mentioned before, me and my wife are both the breadwinners of this, and we have no other income to fall back on. We're not part of a large chain. I don't have a rich uncle who owns a couple more of these. I can't just go and work at another store somewhere. This is my investment. The landlord has relayed to me that if I was to go out of business, he would be put into negative cash flow and possibly into foreclosure. If you'd like to give each one of you a packet here, you can pass those down for me. And these are copies of petitions we have had signed by the neighbors. I'll wait for everyone to get one there.
Excuse me. Mike, what's the rule on these petitions?
You can receive and file them just like you would receive a petition or a card from a neighbor.
Okay. I'll move to receive and file these.
Does it require action?
I only have 10, I'm sorry, perhaps a couple of you could share. If you'd like to notice, the first petition is signed by residents of the Lincoln Plaza, which is where the property is located.
Kathy.
Right here, there's an apartment building in back with 4 residents. 3 of the residents signed in support of our zoning. The 4th resident did not speak English. We also have the tailor shop, which is located at 2424 Southwest 9th Street. Mr. Keogh, he also signed in favor of our zoning request. Second page is Southwest 9th Street, and we have the properties running from Southwest 9th Street to Kirkwood. There are 4 of them there, all signed by the residents on the north side of the street. On the west side of the street. On the east side of the street, there are two residences, 2337 and 2407. Both of those residents signed in favor of our request. Moving up Southwest 9th Street, that is a business called Stroke Detector. I have him on the business, the one signed by the businesses. The third set of petitions signed by residents of Southview Manor, which is a city-owned building right across the street from me there. We have 29 of the 39 residents with their signatures. We have 5 vacant apartments and 5 residents who do not speak English and 5 residents who were disabled and unable to sign. Next is a petition from Southwest 8th Street, and there are, I believe, 10 addresses there. 8 of them, all of them, people on the west side of the street signed. Actually, two of the addresses are Lacona addresses, but they are on the end of Southwest 8th Street. And then we had, on the very end, 2450, we were unable to contact, and 2446 was Sue Donovan of the Planning and Zoning Captain, and she respectfully declined to sign and declared her neutrality. Next is Southwest 7th, where we have I believe we have 3 unoccupied buildings there on Southwest 7th. Sorry, I'll put this back in there. That did not sign. Every other resident on Southwest 7th and the 725 Lacona signed in favor of our request, and were unable to make contact with the last man on the street there at 2477. And then we have Bell Avenue. We have signatures from almost all the residents there, except from 805. A woman said she had religious reasons and denied me a signature. And 730 was a non-English speaker. And the rest, I believe, all signed down to 706 Bell. Oh, and 701 we were unable to make contact with. Then we have a petition signed by all the members of a charitable group I work with called Southside Cares. Whenever they need something for a silent auction or someone in the neighborhood becomes sick, we put a jar up there and collect money for them and try to help them out. And the very last one are the business owners along Southwest 9th who signed our support our request. We have Cavaro Insurance, Skeffington, Stern Financial, Pinelli Heating and Cooling, BD Apparel, Rockstar Restaurant, Fia's Pizza, Elite Expediting, Des Moines Vacuum, Sellers Hardware, Jose's Floor Covering, First General Contractors, the John Heminger Law Firm, City Brake and Clutch, Fraftall Construction Incorporated, Jim's Appliances, the Stroke Detector, and Pisano's Pizza, and Ray's Plumbing. Those are all local businesses that also signed in support of our request for a zoning change. And as a businessman being there for 18 years, I don't think we've had a negative effect on the neighborhood or their quality of life, or I don't think many of these people would have signed if we were the kind of business that has a lot of trouble. In closing, I'd like to remind you that being a small businessman is tough. There's a lot of hours, and your paycheck is what's left over after all the bills are paid and the taxes and your suppliers, and sometimes that's not much. In the last 18 years, me and my wife have fed, clothed, and sheltered and provided for our family. And I'd like you to keep that in mind when you're voting this evening. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your information. At this time, the staff want to, oh, I'm sorry, commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Yes, yeah.
I'd just like to know if the neighborhood meeting was held and what was the report?
Yes, we did hold a neighborhood meeting. I had 3 attendees.
Could you state which neighborhood group it was too, please?
I just held a meeting at the store that I was supposed to.
Was it a neighborhood group?
No, I just invited individuals. There was a list I was given, and Mr. Scott McLaughlin from Stroke Detector attended the meeting, and along with 2 of the residents of Southview Manor attended the meeting.
So you really did not have a meeting with Grays Lake Neighborhood or Indianola Hills Neighborhood Association?
No, they were invited and they did not show.
Did they schedule a meeting, do you know?
No, I was just told to send them a letter inviting them to our meeting.
Thank you.
Hey, just a couple questions. Under the current C1 zoning of the property, you can have beer and wine sales with a conditional use permit from board.
And-
What percentage of your sales is liquor?
Hard liquor?
Yeah.
I'd say maybe 15 to 20%.
So additional beer and wine sales could not be making up some of that difference? You'd mentioned selling groceries and that in addition, but under C1 zoning, you could still have beer and wine sales on the property. Would that be enough to make up the difference if you weren't able to sell
I
liquor
already
anymore?
sell beer and wine, so I don't know, I just have to guess at that, basically. I'm not sure. Losing the liquor license would definitely cut down on our business. I can guarantee you
Yeah,
that.
this would, it'd be a modified or a modified liquor license that you'd have, or it'd be just beer and wine only.
Okay.
Under C1 zoning would be a potential. The other question I had was, did you discuss anything about conditional C2 zoning? The C2 district does allow quite a few additional commercial uses on the property, and that was one of staff's concerns. Did you discuss limited C2 zoning at all, or propose any limitations on uses that are allowed in C2 districts?
No.
And then, I think the staff report did identify that if the zoning were denied, another option still is to seek a use variance from the Zoning Board of Adjustment. They would have to go to the Board of Adjustment anyway for the separation distance issue, I think Jason identified. So those are just a few comments or highlights from the staff report, as well as some thoughts. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, I had 10.
I'm sorry, I think you might have said this, but you don't own the building, you lease the building?
Yes, I am
That's right, you said your lease is up in a year?
November 5th,
Okay.
next year, yes.
Would you or your landlord consider conditional use prohibitions in the zoning and what that would mean is?
No other liquor store in the,
Well, no, it would just be relative to your property,
Mhm.
and it'd be something you'd work out with staff and then maybe bring it back to us, that would have a bunch of other uses presumably prohibited, and would, kind of dial into what your particular use is. I don't know if that would get through here. I don't know what kind of staff recommendation that would get, but that would
no, I wouldn't have a
maybe
problem
be
with that at
another
all.
crack at
Yeah,
that.
yeah. No, I would have no problem with that at all.
And I guess maybe I'll ask you then, would you be willing to go back to staff and maybe talk through that with your landlord and with city staff, continue this, and maybe come back with some of those prohibited uses included?
Sure. I don't see why not.
Okay, so you're asking us for a continuance to do that?
Yeah, but when would that be, the next meeting, a month from now?
We would have to have a staff recommendation out on April, let's see, the next meeting would be the 17th, so we would have staff recs out on the 12th. So that would mean we would have to meet within the next probably 3 days, 4 days to come to some understanding of what limitations you would agree to.
Okay.
Do you suppose you and your landlord could make that kind of a time frame work in the next 3 or 4 days? As long as staff can?
Yeah, I can do that, sure.
So, but I think it should be clear that, that if there is no agreement, it'd probably be the same recommendation from the staff, correct?
It very well may be,
Yeah, so just
depending.
make sure you understand that.
We may still have the same recommendation, it just may be a limited zoning that would be considered by commission instead.
Gives you another crack.
Okay,
Get the staff to agree to.
okay.
I just want to make sure, what is the commission understanding what is this going to be a recommendation, Ted? Motion?
I would recommend continuation until they've had a chance to speak with staff.
Is there a second?
Continuation, I didn't hear.
Yes, I'm recommending continuation. Give them a chance to talk with staff about a new potential staff rec.
Okay, any other questions?
Madam Chair, I would like to hear if there's anybody that does not want this to move.
From the audience?
Yeah,
Right.
but I think that's a great idea, kind of narrow it down, what exactly you want done. Got a lot of support of the community. I find that very impressive.
Thank you very much.
So was there anyone in the audience tonight that was in favor of this proposal?
Yeah.
Come to the podium.
Please come to the mic, if you wouldn't mind, sir, and name and address.
Gotta wait to make motions until after you.
I'm sorry.
I met this young man's parents back in 1972.
Need your name and address.
Oh, my name is Jack Strode, Strode. I live at 6204 Southwest 5th. I've been a lifelong resident of Des Moines. My parents moved here when I was in 3rd grade. I'm 67 years old. So I've been here a while too. But like I said, I met this young man's parents back in the 70s when I started playing rugby. His father was my first rugby coach. I've known him and his family ever since then. His dad is a very, very special person in my life, because at the time I met him, I had some social problems. I did a little time, and when I come out, he helped put me back on the right path. And I was very grateful for that. I know his mother, Hildy. I know his dad, Barry. Like I said, this young man has done nothing but work hard and live by the rules, and anything you people can do to help him, that would be greatly appreciated by a lot of the people on the south side.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Go ahead. Is there anyone else? Yes, please come to the mic and state your name and address.
My name is Tina Goheen. I live at 3135 Southwest 13th Street, just a few blocks away from Rich. I've been going to a store when it was located on both sides of the parking lot. I think it's something important to note that there's never high school kids hanging around out front like you see in some of the other businesses along Southwest 9th. There's never any commotion there. You never see cop cars parked out front. You never see a lot of the things that you see associated with, say, teenagers and getting out of school in the afternoon and causing issues. It's a very family-run place. Like Rich said, it's him and his wife. They're good friends of mine. They have been for a long time, so that's kind of an extra thrill. But they're good people. It's a well-run business. And like he said, there is a discount grocery store right up the road where I shop at called Save-A-Lot. They did try to do groceries for a while, and we all kind of joked about it. He said, I'm trying. But everything expired and had to be dusted off all the time. It was more of decoration than it was for sale. He's a hardworking man on the south side and a big part of our community. I feel like it's a part of community. I like going into a place and picking up the few items that I may need there from a local business owner, not a corporation. I'd rather support Rich and his family with the items that I need to purchase on an occasional basis I buy my lottery tickets there all the time, because I figure if I win there, he wins too, right? Yay! But, you know, I'd rather support our local businesses. And if you look around Southwest 9th, there's a lot of businesses that aren't there anymore, that have disappeared since the 2008 crash, and they started a little bit before that. The area that Rich is in is not in any way attached to Lincoln. Yes, Lincoln is right down there, but it is a big gully between the back of the business and where Lincoln High School practice fields are. It would take an expert climbing team to get to his business from Lincoln. And you also need to take into consideration his landlord. He experienced a fire last year. He rebuilt the apartment buildings with commercial businesses down below. Not all the commercial properties are occupied there now. There was a church, not a church, a community group or something back in there. And they went out of business several years ago, and they're no longer there. There are 2 businesses remaining and 4 tenants now. There is a man that would lose income by not having Rich as a business, because it's a small property. It's not a business that, say, a flower shop would want to go into, or a restaurant would want to go into. It's not that large of a space. So he is a vital part of our Southwest Des Moines neighborhood. I just hope that everyone is able to see that. Thank you.
Thank you for your time and comments. And anyone else?
Hi, my name's Bruce Fletcher, and I live at Southby Manor across the street. I got to know Rick when I moved in there 2 years now, and I tell you what, hardest working people, Jesus. You know, no matter what time of day I go in there, I'm a cigar smoker, and they got a great humidor in there, so it's great for me. But every time you go in there, it's always the same, you know. They're very, there's somebody's in that cooler, and that's not hard, that's hard work. And it's either one of them. So they, you know, it's tough. But great people, and I hope this really gets resolved. And like I say, I just hope everything works out. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, too. And anyone else that wishes to? Yes, sir. And please state your name and address.
My name's Silas J. Patrick. I live at 1941 Cortland Drive. It's here in Des Moines, apartment 10 if you're in the neighborhood. It's a safe house too. So. Rich, Southside Tobacco, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. It's really, really American. Something American about that. You know, our country was built on those things. I served 6 years in the Marine Corps because I believe in my country. I wasn't drafted. I just felt like I owed it because the country's been good to me. I've been all over the world, and whenever I come back to Des Moines, I stop at Southside Tobacco. I go to Rich. It's what you call a mainstay, like Scornavacos or Noah's Ark, or, you know, our spots here in Des Moines. Tasty Tacos. Smitty's if you want a tenderloin. But if you want to really, 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 really come home, and you smoke like I do, you go by Southside Tobacco and you holler at Rich, because you want his opinion. What he says in the community matters. He actually cares about the community. He reads. He's not stupid. And his wife's not stupid either. Shannon, she tries to play stupid, but she's not stupid. She's smart too. His kid's a brilliant kid. Never hear about them in trouble. I can't say enough about Southside Tobacco because, like I said, it's a mainstay. I live on the South Side. I grew up on Chautauqua Parkway, and we had stores like that where I could take a note to the store from my mom or my grandma, and they would give me the 6-pack of Pepsi, a bottle of Anderson's, and a pack of Cools. I was only 6 years old. He can't do that now because of laws, but it's the same format, you know what I mean? It's a mainstay. your mama come in with this note and pay it later. I know the zoning's for a reason. I asked this guy right here what it's for, and he's like, give me the whole Bill Clinton answer. Well, all I could say was, you're going down, dude, because your cause and your reason is not for the greater good. If the business was doing so much evil to the neighborhood, then it wouldn't be there for this long. It's like a nightclub that caters to a certain genre of people. Nothing but good people mess with Rich. Rich don't mess with bad people. He'll get them out of his area before that happens. I know Rich. I've known Rich for more than a decade. I would die for Rich. I would die for my city, and I would die for my state. I would die for my country. It's all American. So, if the zoning is so important, pay to relocate them then. Pay them to put them somewhere over by Dawes where there's going to be more business. Just don't put him up against the wall where he's squeezed out because of politics. You know what I mean? No disrespect against politics, it's a necessary evil, just like law. But as an art therapist, psychologist, human services bachelor, I know the importance of the business. So don't disregard that, He was very humble when he came up here and spoke. If it was me, I would have been very angry. Because I believe at an easement and an appeasement, there's a grandfather clause. But I studied real estate in California, not Iowa, so I don't know. But I think there's a clause in there somewhere that he's missing. It's up for him to find it, but if you guys can catch it before him, help Rich out. Help him out. He needs all of our help. Every business that's owned by an Iowan needs our help. Not Costco, not Walmart, not Sears, not Sam's Club. Southside Tobacco, Southside Liquor, Southside Laundry, Northside this, Northside that, Eastside this, Westside that, Grandview University, Drake, Iowa, Iowa State, UNI, DMAC. I love my city, I love my state, and I love my country. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Bob Ebling, and I'm across the street neighbor. I've watched this operation for going on 4 years. And to cut to the chase, they run a clean store. They don't have kids hanging around. They don't have drunks hanging around. It's strictly business. And most important, it's a mom and pop operation, literally, that supports a family. Whatever it takes to encourage that is what we need to work on. Whether it fits in with somebody's overview, it's been there for 20 years. It should stay. Whatever has to be done to ensure that his licenses are correct and the business continues, that's what needs to be done. Economic impact, my cigarettes would go up. I might have to quit smoking if I got to go somewhere else to buy them. I don't drink much, so I don't buy much liquor, but that's an integral part of the business. We need to quit picking on the little guy and facilitate him wherever possible. And that's basically what you're being asked for, is facilitate a family's income. And we keep talking about it, but we need to back it up sometime. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there comments from the commissioners? I do, in the interest of fairness, though, I need to ask if there is anyone here tonight that wishes to speak in opposition to the proposal. Okay, any final commissioner comments? Go ahead, Christine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is very clear that there's a lot of community support, and that is very impressive. We don't see that often from the number of petitions that you received. It's very clear from the support that came up, this is truly what I'd refer really as a place-based business. And I want to thank Ted for, I know you're, like many of us probably, and I can't speak for everyone, and I won't, but I appreciate you trying to explore ways that this can be a positive outcome for the business owner. So I'm in support of what you've requested, so.
Yeah, did you have a follow-up?
No, I'd like to ask Mike if you'd like
Yeah,
to.
If I could, real quick. The motion on the table should probably be restated, but I believe it was for continuance. I believe Roger Brown, our legal team for the city that's assigned to the Planning Commission, has maybe a suggestion of how we might be able to address it this evening, rather than a continuance, so.
Okay.
Go ahead, Roger.
I spoke with Mr. Hoots and...
Well, actually, Mr. Hoots wasn't with us tonight.
I'll speak loud. If you are here representing the applicant, if you would agree to amend your application to seek the C1 zoning plus a liquor store. Under that amendment, right now the property is zoned C1. The property owner or the tenant has a set of uses that are allowed in the C1 district. If you rezone to C2 without limitations, it adds in a lot of other things, and some of those things the commission might find objectionable. A limited rezoning is where you agree that you're not going to use it for everything that might otherwise be allowed by the zoning ordinance. So as we discussed, if it was limited to what you can do now, which is C1 plus a liquor store, then it would really focus in on what's being requested. If for some reason the owner and tenant were not willing and able to give us a signed acceptance to that, well, we would be reporting to the council that your recommendation was based upon that, and that's changed. But if we're confident that they can do that, and if that's what you'd like to do, I would consider this application being amended, being rezoning, a limited rezoning to C2 with the uses being restricted to those uses allowed in the C1 district, plus a liquor store, also sometimes referred to in our code as a packaged goods store for the sale of alcoholic beverages.
As I understand the motion, you were just asking for continuance to discuss what could be amended, is that correct?
I would be happy to rescind my motion to continue.
I just have a procedural question, because I have the impression now that what's being suggested, this isn't what was obviously submitted to the public for comment. This isn't, so I just have a procedural concern about that. Could staff address that, because it's not what was put forth?
What Roger just described is actually more restrictive than what was advertised and more restrictive than what was mailed to the applicant. So I don't think there's any procedural issue with making a motion for a more restrictive zoning than what was advertised.
Okay, thank you.
But I just want to make sure that you understood everything that he said, and, okay. And do you need discussion with your landlord, with the owner?
I'm sure he'd agree with that.
Madam Chair?
Madam Chair.
Okay, I think you're first, and then we'll come down here.
I think since we're dealing with a party that's not represented here, the property owner, and since zoning goes with the property, I think a continuance is better so that we can hear from the property owner. We're dealing with hearsay right now. I mean, so I think if the property owner wants to come to the continuance, I think that would be my preference for the commission. Thank you.
Tim, did you have?
I have two questions, and one is with this conditional request. if he would sell the business, then they would have to come, whoever would buy this business or buy the business would have to come before this commission again? No?
No.
Can we make an amendment so that it'd have to happen?
You couldn't, zoning runs with the land, not with the ownership.
Okay.
So, staff is suggesting that the current recommendation be amended. Well, first I need to ask Ted if you're comfortable with pulling I think you said you were, with pulling your request for continuance. And who seconded that? Are you okay with that too?
Yes.
Okay. So then is there a new motion?
Madam Chair, could I ask Mr. Bartlett, do you think your landlord could make it to the next meeting?
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
Okay.
On the 17th.
Yes, the next meeting is April 17th.
It seems as if you're awfully close, though, but you feel very confident. And we could, he'll need to sign, so if that doesn't happen, if he actually doesn't agree, then...
They technically have to have the conditions agreed to in writing prior to the council hearing. You're making a recommendation only to the council. So if the applicant does not agree to the conditions, that would just be a reason for the council to deny the rezoning if it went before them.
If I could, I might suggest that you think of it in the terms, this is no different than when you recommend your own conditions of approval for zoning, which you often do, where those, I didn't mean that sarcastically, but, so it's not any different than that, where the owner has to agree to that in writing prior to the hearing before the council, so it really falls within that. You may not be comforted by that, you may still want to continue the item, but it isn't quite as the leap or whatever as it might seem. It really isn't any different than applying a condition.
And my unreadiness, and I think I heard down here too, is that we're not dealing with the owner at this meeting. So that's why I'm asking, is there a suggestion for that from the commission?
Madam Chair, I support the notion of continuing. It might seem to some that the staff is being harsh on this particular instance. However, I think that staff is trying to fulfill their obligation in terms of administering the new ordinance, but I would respectfully remind the commission of something I'm sure you're aware of, and that's the fact that the new ordinance with the 40% proviso in it was passed to prevent the proliferation of liquor stores, and this is not that kind of instance whatsoever.
Okay, so I guess once again I'm asking, is there a new motion? Ted?
I'm comfortable with moving this today. I get the sense that he's in very close contact with the landlord. The landlord is going to have a chance, is going to have to approve this before it goes in front of council. So if what we're hearing today is inaccurate, we're going to know that before it goes in front of the council. We're merely recommending to the council, as they've said. He's obviously got a lot of support here, no opposition. I think the best solution is the C1 with
C2.
C2 with the condition.
Okay, so you're moving,
C2 zoning with C1 uses plus a liquor store.
Yes, I'm making Roger's motion.
okay.
And please, I don't recommend on policy, and I was just recommending or suggesting a procedure. You don't take my action on this as either a recommendation in support or an opposition that was being proposed to you. I just was trying to expedite the matter if that was possible.
Allow me to rephrase. I'm taking Roger's technical
Advice.
motion advice and making it my own.
Thank you, Counselor.
I second.
All right, so I need to ask Kathy if she understands the motion. No?
We got it. I've got it in the notes.
Okay. Would anybody like?
Greg Wadier, seconded.
Anybody need further clarification or discussion on what we're voting on? Okay, so all those in favor of rezoning to C2 with C1 uses plus a liquor store. Please signify by raising your right hand. Okay, is there any opposition?
Are you voting?
Oh, I guess I forgot to vote, I'm sorry. Okay, I vote affirmatively, I'm sorry. I was trying to count votes too.
10-1.
Yeah, and one opposed.
10-1.
All right, so sir, do you understand what we just did?
Okay.
I just want to make sure before you leave that you understand.
So the recommendation was for approval of limited zoning. The legal department will prepare a letter to send to the owner of the property, which has those conditions in it. The recommendation of the commission will be forwarded to the city council. The council will have to set a date of hearing, which they would not be setting the date of hearing until their April 21st, April 21st meeting. I'm sorry, April 18th meeting.
That's us, isn't it?
14, April 21st. No,
That's us.
that's
Yeah.
us. So April 21st meeting,
Yeah, that's
council
right.
would set hearing for their first meeting in May on the rezoning then. So you have until then to get a signed letter from, back to our legal department agreeing to those conditions by the owner of the property. Okay?
And who should he be in contact with, just to make
Our
sure we
legal,
have everything?
Rogers here, our
Okay.
legal department will send out that
The gentleman you
letter.
were talking to. And thank you, everyone, for coming and speaking tonight on behalf of this. Yep.
Nicely done.
All right, we are ready for item number 8. This is a request from Eric Peterson, the owner. As a Dad is the business that we're discussing for review and approval of an amendment to the Sawyer's Landing PUD conceptual plan on property at 4820 Sawyer's Drive. So Jason, you're
Yes, Chair, members of the commission, Jason Van Essen with the city's planning staff. Just to remind everybody, Sawyer's Landing is in the PUD in the development in the north part of town, along south of the Des Moines River, in the MLK Parkway area when the road kind of ends north of Douglas Avenue. With it being PUD, there's that zoning classification, we develop a plan, that plan has all the uses spelled out, and it's separated from the rest of the zoning ordinance in the sense that things that might seem like a home occupation, if provisions aren't in the PUD, there's not an opportunity for them to go to the Board of Adjustment. So, typically something along this would be viewed as a home occupation, and in most parts of the city would go before the zoning board of adjustment for conditional use. This came into us, and at first we looked at approving this administratively. We sent out notice like we would, and got back this map and the response cards, which I will send around. And there was opposition, so we felt, that was a situation where we couldn't approve it administratively. So we advised the applicant that it would need to come in as an amendment to the PUD that was through the public hearing process. The applicant was given the notice list this time, held neighborhood meetings, and then we sent out new cards for the actual hearing. And then we received 2 cards. You can see, perhaps I shouldn't have given up the map, that there was, after the applicant had the neighborhood meeting, there was...
Would you like it back, Mr.
Yes,
President?
I appreciate it. Thank you. So you can see there was a change in response. Both from our procedure processes with regard to supermajority and stuff, this is the response that counts. But I think it's important, too, to recognize that there was some concern at first. Perhaps it's been alleviated by the explanation. So, photograph of the property, single-family dwelling. We have the applicant is wanting to operate a bike rental business out of their their property, and I'll let them explain their business plans to you. But it's fairly minimal. It's noted in the staff report with regard to hours and impact. 4 bikes is what the max that they're limiting it to. So what we did, as I noted, this is a PUD where the special permit process isn't there, but we felt that criteria made sense to apply this against. So there's a copy of that in your staff report, and then we did our analysis like we would if this was going before the Board of Adjustment. And at the end of the day, we felt that this made sense here so long as the following limitations could be met. So we were recommending approval subject to no more than 4 bikes being leased from the premise, and that any home occupation shall uphold the intent and spirit of the standards that apply to other zoning districts found in 134, 13, 26, 10 of the zoning ordinance. So basically, getting back to that criteria of the special permit process, that the hours of operations would be limited to 7 to 9, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and recognized holidays. And any business shall be in effect so long as the premise is owned and occupied by the applicant, similar to how special permit is handled. And that the business, should the business determine to be operating detrimentally to the surrounding neighborhood area, that the zoning enforcement officer may initiate the process to repeal the amendment. So kind of a hook to bring it back. And if there should happen to be issues, we don't foresee any, but that's kind of standard process for us as we look at cases that go before the Board of Adjustment. So happy to answer any questions.
All right. Any questions for Jason? Okay, seeing none, is Mr. Peterson here today? Yep. Would you like to come forward and state your address as well, too, please?
Eric Peterson, 4820 Sawyers Avenue, or Sawyers Drive, Des Moines, Iowa. So basically, I just want to bring a little fun to Des Moines. I want to have access to fat tire bikes, and if you're not familiar with fat tire bikes, they're 4-inch wide tires that can be used sand, trail, any kind of trail, but they also can be used in the winter. And it tends to be used by bikers, but I have had some people say that, hey, that'd be a fun thing to use, like runners and walkers and whatnot. I live close to Sycamore Trail, which is a single track trail, so more or less a dirt trail. So I was talking to some of my friends, and they're like, hey, you know what, those things are kind of expensive. I'd love to ride one though. So the idea popped in that let's have fat tire bike rental available to the general public so that they can try them out and have a good time. So I don't want to be a bike shop. I don't want to be maintenance. I don't want to be any of those things. All I want to do is have a couple bikes available for people to ride on occasion. I think that mostly it'll be a pickup and go off to another trail situation. There might be some people in the area that will want to get it and then ride it out the door, basically. There is a paved trail that is very close to the neighborhood, and then also the trail I referenced earlier, Sycamore Trail. That is a dirt trail. It's about 3 miles long. So that might be one of the activities. I think the biggest concern with the opposition is the parking. Basically, yeah, they're going to have to potentially park if they take a bike and go ride it on the trail close to the house. My driveway is available for parking, and there is in-street parking on one side as well. So obviously, if there's a large number of vehicles, then that's the main concern. That's basically what I want to do. It's quite simple. Rent a couple fat tire bikes from my house, and I appreciate having the time to be able to do this. I know that there's a lot of things on the agenda that are quite important, but it's just bringing Des Moines a little something.
All right, any questions from Mr. Peterson? Yes, Joanne.
I really have no objection, but I was just wondering, having bicycles means bicycle repair. Is that something that you are going to be doing on your property also?
No. If the bikes need maintenance, I've worked out with a local bike shop that would be able to take care of that for me.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, Thank you. Thank you very much. At this time, then, we will ask if there is anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the proposal. Seeing none, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition of the proposal? All right, seeing none.
I have one question for the applicant.
Okay, another question for the applicant.
Are you in favor of the recommendations? Staff recommendations?
Yeah.
You are, okay, thank you.
Did everybody hear that? The question was he in favor? And he said yes, he is in favor of that. So is there any other comments from the staff?
I'll make a motion to move, staff.
Okay. Motion has been properly moved and seconded. And this is in favor of the staff recommendation, and I'll just go through that very carefully here again. The staff recommends approval of amendment. These conditions, correct, yeah. Approval of the amendment to the Sawyer's Landing PUD to allow home occupation at 4820 Sawyer's Drive to operate the bicycle rental business subject to the following conditions. Number one, no more than 4 bicycles shall be leased from that premise. Number 2, any home occupation shall uphold the intent and spirit of the standards applicable to other zoning districts found in section 134-13-2610 of the zoning ordinance. Number 3, that the hours of operation of the bicycle rental business shall occur between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and recognized holidays. That any business shall only be in effect for so long as the premises are owned and occupied by the applicant. And finally, that should the business be determined to be operating detrimentally to the surrounding neighborhood areas, the zoning enforcement officer may initiate the process to repeal the amendment. So we have a motion, it's been properly seconded. All those in favor of the recommendation, please signify by raising your right arm. Is there any opposition? It looks unanimous. Got that, Kathy? Okay, thank you very much.
When can we run a bike?
Yeah.
After the city council approves the zoning.
All right, thank you very much. Item number 9 is a request from Denise Cody, owner, represented by Curtis White, to rezone the property located at 912 43rd Street. It's you again, Jason.
Yes.
Or Bill Clinton. I
Our
guess, in
president, yeah. I had the urge to go here, I feel your pain.
Thank goodness the TV camera.
Multi-talented, like I say. Yeah, bird writers, that's right. On a serious note. Our item under consideration now, this is item 9, and this is what we have is a proposal to rezone a property that is zoned single-family to allow a duplex. There's some history to this case. This property, this was a single-family dwelling as its original construction. There are cards going around. I can come back to this response map, but at some point in time, this property was converted to a duplex illegally. There was an error made by our housing inspection staff, and there was, for a period of time, a rental certificate that had been issued. Unfortunately, the staff, there wasn't a cross-check with our zoning. So no zoning grandfathering rights were ever established. This went before the Zoning Board of Adjustment, I believe it was last month, requesting, basically they challenged the zoning officer's determination that they did not have any grandfathering rights. They lost that. The board upheld the determination. So now their next step, as far as seeking the continuation of the use, is to rezone the property. And of course, if the zoning wasn't approved by the city council, that would allow them a third step, which would be to go back to the board for a use variance. The response cards are going around. This is the response map. We have enough opposition that will require supermajority at the city council level. I guess the couple of things to point out here is, and this is similar to the other case, one of the other cases we saw tonight, and other cases that we see frequently where there's a lot of kind of extracurricular things that are going on. They're really more kind of board of adjustment type things that you're hearing. And really the question to the commission tonight, and then ultimately city council, is really one, is it warranted here to amend the future land use map to allow this use on this particular site, or to allow the zoning that's necessary? And then to make that second decision, does it make sense from a future planning long-term standpoint to have this continue on as a, to be a duplex and to continue regardless of current ownership and that sort of thing. So those are the questions we ask ourselves as staff. We look through, the city's comp plan. We look at the development patterns in the area, for instance, and then also, things more specific to the site. Is the lot large enough to support adequate setbacks, adequate area for parking, and those different things that are necessary for multifamily, or in this case, a duplex structure. Putting that all together and thinking it through, we found that it does not make sense here. We are recommending denial of the land use plan amendment, and then of course denial of the rezoning. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Jason/Bill? Pam?
I'm just curious, did they cut the home in half, or is it a efficiency mother-in-law type thing, or?
What I understand is that at one time there was an owner, and this is somewhat hearsay, but my understanding is that there was an owner that had a professional office, maybe like a dentist or something, and that component, okay, I'm getting some nods, and that I believe what has happened is that space that was kind of specialized for that office was converted, that it allowed them to kind of convert it more so than what you might think your challenges would be with a house that's just set up specifically for single family.
Jason, I also believe that at the time of the conversion, that the property owner was living in the dwelling, and the second dwelling was the rental.
When the rental certificate was issued, it's actually technically just one certificate for the rental unit because there was an owner occupied, but still that was done in error.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, is Ms. Cody present tonight, or Mr. White, I'm sorry. If you would please come forward and state your address, please.
I'm Kenneth Weiland, I'm attorney at law. My address is 1502 30th Street, Des Moines. How's everyone doing this evening? All right. Well, I guess let's start off with, there was that discussion about what type of apartment, this is. And I think that we have a picture here that would probably make it very clear. Let me use this one. Right here, this is the house. This here is the apartment, basically. That's it. So we're not talking about a duplex that you normally think of as a duplex with two equal size units, sitting side by side or one above each other or whatnot. This is really more on the lines of a, mother-in-law apartment, as it's normally called. So that is the entrance that, as it was discussed previously that was used for the office that is now converted to an apartment. Now, my client, when she purchased this house, she did so with, the intent of buying a place that had a rental unit attached. And we attached, I don't know if everyone has the documents, if you need, I have some copies if need be, but we attached to our application copies of the listing and the rental certificates and a statement from the real estate agent that sold Ms. Cody the house, indicating that the primary intention was having a unit that did have at least a rental aside. She was living in it for a period of time before moving out, and renting out the main house as well. But that was the whole point. And of course, at that time, a rental certificate was an issue. It may have been issued in here, but that was an issue. And my client, along with her fiance, that's Mr. White, that is seated right here, and he has power of attorney on Ms. Cody's behalf. They looked at this and researched and saw there was a rental certificate, saw that it was available for this, plus the zoning code for this particular area indicated that there was a grandfather clause in 1996 that anything that was being used as a multifamily housing at that time would still be allowed, and there was no reason for them to know when this was converted. It was, admittedly, the previous, whatever owner it was did so illegally, but my client purchased this house with the idea that there was a rental certificate in place and wanted to have this. Now, the other thing I'd like to point out is if you look here, this here gives you a little bit more perspective. That's not coming in real clear there, but this is the house at issue, and right here is an 8-plex right across the street. So we're not talking about that this is deep inside residential area. This is on the edge of a zoning line. So, and we're talking an 8-plex, little tiny efficiency apartment. And somehow this is going to change everything in this neighborhood all of a sudden if we allow this little efficiency apartment to exist. And no one had any complaints about it until the main unit got rented out. And the problem really is, and the reason why you saw that red is because it's a family, a Mexican family that is now living in the main house, and they are a large family, and everyone in the neighborhood is upset because there's so many of them. But that would not change renting out this small unit because they're still in the main house. And the rental certificate, they can rent out the main house. They just can't rent out the main house and the smaller unit. They can get a rental certificate for the main house. And so any complaints regarding this large family living there is not going to be remedied by denying the use of this efficiency apartment on the side. So, so when we look at this, and here, by the way, is the picture of the 8-plex right across the street, just so you can see that. And of course, further, right behind that, of course, is Roosevelt shopping area, and the Roosevelt High School is just on the south side of this neighborhood. So, they're right on the edge there of a commercial area. And that's why I think that this is, for such a small little apartment, which is, actually, if you want to even, it's only about 120 square feet, and that's according to the assessor's page here. We can show you right here, you can see that right there is the apartment, 120 square feet, very small. That's all we're looking for. And so when we take into consideration that the owners purchased this with the idea that they were going to be able to rent out this apartment, and that is the only reason they purchased it, there's an issue of fairness here, because if the city had not issued the rental certificate, they never would have purchased it. So they purchased it relying on the city being accurate that it was eligible for a rental certificate. And given all of what I've just said, there's no reason to believe that anyone would think otherwise until the city came forth and said, no, this was a mistake. And so as a result, that is why we're here asking for the zoning change. Believe that it is fair, I believe it is right. I don't believe that it's going to cause any harm to this neighborhood whatsoever at all to allow this one little tiny efficiency apartment to be allowed to be rented out in addition to the rest of the house. So that, really, I guess I'll just keep it there. I like to keep it simple. And I believe I've said everything that needs to be said. Any questions?
Joanne?
Do you know the original certificate that was issued? Was it an owner-occupied situation at that time?
No, matter of fact, right here, I've got,
I believe it was.
I don't think it says so on there. Let me look at it again here. I've looked at it a number of times about this. There's nothing on the certificate that indicates that.
Was the person who applied for the certificate living in the house?
Wait, I don't know.
Owned the house?
I mean, it's my understanding.
That's the crux of the whole matter. If it's an owner-occupied, the little apartment, I don't think is any big deal. But I'm not so sure that this certificate applies to a duplex situation.
Well, when the house was purchased, it was actually under a trust deed because the previous owner was deceased.
That's not my question.
I don't know, though, whether, because obviously we couldn't even talk to the previous owner because he was deceased at the time this was purchased, so
I
it's
think it would be not difficult to find out who owned the house when the certificate was issued, and whether or not the person who owned or asked for that certificate was indeed the owner and occupier of the main house.
Okay, well, like I said, though, we don't, I mean, they're dead. I don't know, and it's impossible to ask him at this point in time as to whether.
You don't ask him.
I mean,
It's something you can look up.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, we don't know for sure. I mean, if they had, if the rental certificate doesn't indicate that it had to be owner occupied, so he could have very well been renting it out on both sides at the time of his death. I don't know, ma'am. I have no idea.
You can find out where he was living at that time.
Well,
I'm afraid.
are you asking us to expend the funds to research where this man was living at the time he died? Is that what you're asking, ma'am?
What I'm asking for is, was this an owner-occupied situation when the certificate was taken out? It makes a difference to me whether or not it's worth going any further on it.
I think maybe, is the answer no, that you don't?
I'm
No,
saying I
yeah.
do not know. I can't answer that.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that.
I don't know how to answer that
We
question
haven't
beyond that.
either. Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
I do have a question, and this might be directed towards Mike, but when we have a certificate of occupancy for a duplex, it's my understanding that both units must have, I believe, a refrigerator, a stove, plumbing.
Separate meters.
Well, not necessarily separate meters, but a living space. And if that's, first of all, I'm not sure, is that the case? I mean, you just can't rent a room, can you, as a duplex?
And I can't speak to the specifics on the rental certificate of the property. I'm assuming that if it complied with the rental code, which is what the inspector was actually looking at the property for, it was in compliance with the rental code when the certificate was issued. But you do have to renew rental certificates. It's not a permanent certificate that you have in perpetuity. So there are renewals that are required, and, if codes change or things like that occur during that time, they're responsible for complying with the current code at the time they're applying for their rental certificate, so.
Yeah, and I do have a little bit of experience with this, and I do believe if you have a multi-home dwelling, and they might have gotten that certificate because they had plumbing without actually being a dual dwelling at the time. But I don't see where 120 feet would have enough room for more than a bed in there. So I just don't see where there's a facility to make it an individual unit. I just don't, not here, not with.
I can't speak to what the interior, I don't know if you have a floor
Yeah,
plan.
do you have a picture of the inside floor plan?
But Mr. White could address those issues.
Okay, well, we'll give him a chance in a minute. Christine, did you have a question for Mr. Wyland?
Actually, I had a question for staff, and it might not matter, but and maybe council can clarify this possibly. Can you speak to whether or not someone, an owner occupied, actually even needs to get a rental certificate? It's my understanding that they do not.
An owner occupant would not need to get a rental certificate of what they're occupying. I think the introductory remarks, it was said that there was one rental certificate issued for this building at one time and renewed through the years. And that rental certificate was for this extra space. If at the time that was first issued, the owner was living in the main part of the building, then no rental certificate was needed for that part. It was when that part, if it was ever rented out, that's when that part should have been inspected for compliance with the rental code.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Wyland? Okay, then at this time, we will ask if,
Actually, ma'am, was just looking at this, I might actually be able to answer the previous question because I see that a rental certificate was issued to Richard Leth at one point in time at 912 43rd, the property issue, but then it was also issued with an address of 3930 Grand Avenue, for that property. Both were rental certificates for 912 43rd, but Mr. Leth's address changed to 3930 Grand, which would imply that he was not living there when that was issued. So I can't say for certain, but that's what the city did. I guess the city could have made a mistake again, since they seem to be making lots of mistakes on this property, but that would seem to imply that he wasn't living there.
And was that second one that listed his address as Grand Avenue for 2 dwelling units or 1 dwelling unit?
On each one, they just indicate 912 43rd. It doesn't specify 910 and 912, which technically the small apartment is 910. In each case, it just says 912 43rd on both rental certificates.
Okay, thank you.
So, I'm sorry,
okay.
Okay.
Okay, so then at this time, we will ask if there is anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this application. And Mr. White, I assume that's when you want to come and speak.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
I was only getting ours there. I knew we had.
Curtis White, I just want to,
On your address, too.
912 43rd Street. I just want to ask you to ask yourself a question. You go to a car dealership and you buy a truck, and they pull you out a sedan and said, it's yours. Sorry, we made a mistake. Keep the purchase. That's virtually what happened to me and my fiance. We bought this property with the intention of having a rental unit attached to it. And all we've gotten from the city is, sorry, we made a mistake. That was a $190,000 mistake that we are stuck with and trying to figure out something to do with. And I think it's very unfair for them to be, nobody has disputed, not once, that they clearly made a mistake. There was no indication on the certificate that showed us that, hey, this had some other clause, extension to it. There was no red alerts for us anywhere. We were sold to by a reputable Iowa Realty. No one threw a red flag anywhere that the history behind it. I personally had called the city and validated that the certificate was good. No one suggested that this would ever come up as an issue, or we just wouldn't have simply bought I did not buy this property to have an issue with the city about getting the certificate renewed. That just wouldn't have been something I've done. I've been in real estate for 20 years now. I have other additional rental properties, and I know to work with them, not work against them. But to have this to be brought to us this way and say, hey, your loss is totally unfair. And for the amount of space that we're talking about, to make us suffer a loss, because here's what happens. When we purchased the place, we went in knowing that this place would give us X amount of dollars to take off the mortgage. So we budgeted just for that. And when another opportunity came for a house that we could do the similar from, because that's the nature of my business, we budgeted for that. But virtually for us to go to take away the income that comes from there puts about a $550 deficit into our budget that we have to just come up with. And for the next, I think we have a 15-year mortgage on that. That's a big bite to take up, to tell us to just swallow, because the city openly made a mistake. So I just wanted to make it clear that, the extenuating circumstances on this issue was that we were sold a house through Iowa Realty based on the city's information that this was a property that had a valid certificate. It showed that it had been rented over and over before. The tenant was in there when we purchased it. They were already there when we purchased it, and then to now tell us the very first time it's up for renewal, oh, sorry. I just wanted to make it clear that, outside of there's a big financial burden that's attached to this, because myself and my fiance are now stuck with a $190,000 home that has no income coming from that side, which we bought it with that very plan and purpose in order to pay for it. Thank you.
Mr. White, do you live there? Is that what I heard you say?
We were living there. We're not now.
You just gave us your address as this address.
I thought you wanted me to present the address which was in question.
No, it's your personal address.
Oh, I'm sorry. 4107 Lakeland Court.
You've been in the business for 20 years. I'm going to ask you the same question. What do you know about the rental laws and what is appropriate for gathering an occupancy for both sides?
Are you just about what I know about getting a renter certificate? Or this particular property that I really didn't question it, because I know if the city's issued a certificate on it, an inspector has been there and it passed everything.
I understand that, and it was, the large part was being rented, and I get that, and there may have been a mistake, but now they're asking for a duplex, or virtually a multifamily. What do you know about occupancy permits in individual units? What do you need
specific requirement
to get that permit for a duplex? Both units need.
Well, I wouldn't be able to answer all that. I trust the expertise of the city people. If they come in there and they need a certain amount of plumbing, certain amount of space, they've checked it and it went over. And I wanted to address,
But sir, I want to stop you. You said that you knew that they had an occupancy permit. Now you're asking for to rezone it so it can be a duplex. And you said you went in there knowing that there was an occupancy permit for rental. But now you're asking for a dual one. They're not asking just to renew the one that you have, but we're asking to rezone it so it'd be a duplex.
Yeah, the fact that we were renting it, why would? Yes. If I'm trying to make sure I understand exactly what you're asking me, that when we had the tenant when I purchased it, there was a tenant there. Your question I'm hearing is, what did I know about that tenant being there, or what rules did I know about the tenant being there?
What I'm asking you is, when you moved in, you said they sold it to you as a duplex. You said they sold it to you as a duplex, so you thought everything was taken care of. However, the permit was for a single-family unit. Now we're asking to have it a multifamily unit. And you said you've been in the business for 20 years. My question initially to you is, do what needs to be done to get these permits for the different units? So you're not walking into...
We're more than willing to make whatever.
Yes or no maybe would answer.
Maybe you can answer the question on the,
I think we're mixing rental code and zoning
Yeah.
here, so.
Oh, okay,
a
yeah,
little
you
bit,
know what,
so
you're right.
I want to be a little cautious on that.
okay.
But I think they're indicating how they purchased the property, and I think that's probably a sufficient answer at this
Okay,
point.
that's fine. Thank you, yeah, and that's right, I'm mixing zoning with the coding. And we'll leave it at that, thank you.
Yes. Joanne, you have a
We should
question?
end it here. I think we should
Yeah,
have favor and opposed, and then comments from Commissioner.
I agree. Okay, thank you. At this time, we will now ask if there is anyone else to speak in favor of the proposal, and that it would be in favor. Seeing none, is there anyone here to speak in opposition? And same thing, sir, if I could ask you to state your name and your address.
Theodore Stroop, 4309 Chamberlain. First off, don't appreciate Mr. Wyland implying that there's a conspiratorial racial or cultural bias in our neighborhood against the current occupants of that house. It's very offensive, and if there is one, I hope my daughters were able to hide it from their family while they were playing with the folks
Are you
that...
addressing the
I'm sorry.
commission
Well,
or not?
you're welcome. Sorry. While my daughters were playing with the lovely daughters of the current tenants of 912 43rd this weekend. Where do I start? Trying to get through my prepared points and then the ones that I brought up were brought up by Mr. Wyland. One of the points that I think is very valid is character of the neighborhood. The California Drive, Chamberlain 43rd Street Circle there actually has a duplex on it. It'd be roughly the southwest pie slice there is actually a duplex. But it has adequate off-street parking. It's been a duplex. It was built as a duplex. It's two separate units. It's what everyone thinks of as a duplex. It has adequate off-street parking off the Circle Alley for the anticipated rental load. It's what a duplex is. As for the eightplex on the corner of 43rd and Chamberlain opposite my house, again, they have adequate off-street parking for the anticipated tenant load that they have. Furthermore, they have on-street parking in front of the building that is very often full because obviously folks own more than one car or people just want to come and go. That's a very busy intersection right there at 43rd and Chamberlain because it spurs a lot of parking issues because of that triangle median. There's no parking on the triangle median, adjacent to the triangle median. And because it's a rounded corner, you don't have the typical parking here to corner space that you have. For instance, I can't park in front of my own house. I have to park in front of if I park on the street, in front of my neighbors to the north. The property in question, 912, has the least amount of off-street parking in the entire circle. In fact, the off-street parking that the property once had has been covered by the garage that you can see in back. So the only off-street parking 912 43rd has is the apron in front of their garage, where typically they park a sedan parallel to the alley. It's the only off-street parking you could fit a four-door sedan on the apron of the parking, unless you parked your car in the garage. So that garage parking is their only off-street parking, and typically the tenants that park there now park in front of their house, as you would expect. And this doesn't need to be a forum on multifamily housing in general. It doesn't need to be a forum on the current tenants. This is a long-term problem when you're talking about rezoning this for multifamily, because if you're talking about transient residents, you have to think in the long term of the other folks that are going to rent there. And just because the people that rent it in the future may have more cars to park, the people that rent it in the future may have less cars to park, but that doesn't alleviate the problem. As we all know, the priority snow removal ordinance basically encompasses the entire city. I'm sorry, I just moved here in January. So I think it's Waveland Heights is the neighborhood association, obviously signed on for the priority snow removal ordinance. And that creates a real concern because at every snow event, our neighborhood is under the priority snow removal ordinance where your car has to be off the street so the plows can come through. And here we have a house where we're asking to add another family and their associated parking problem to the house with the least amount of off-street parking in the neighborhood. The folks that own the eightplex adjacent obviously deal with that. They take their cars off the street, and it appears to me they have an agreement with the folks with the shopping center to the east that allow them to park in that space as well. The other comment I have about the eightplex with the character of the neighborhood argument is just because I live adjacent to a certain land use doesn't mean I have to live with the nuisance it might create. And subsequently, we're able to abate the nuisances the eightplex creates, i.e. parking problems, with parking enforcement. There's a mechanic shop, Drake Garage, right there on the corner. Drake Garage doesn't get to make as much noise, dust, what have you that's associated with a garage and tell me to deal with it because I live 2 houses away from them. They have to conform to their land use. Not only do I think that this is an inappropriate land use to rezone this to a duplex, but then to tell me that I would have to deal with the nuisance it creates as well is just as unfair to us as it is to Mr. White. I feel for him on probably being sold down the river by his real estate agent. That's a lovely house. It could be rented for the mortgage cost plus profit easily to a single family. The other thing I would like to point out is a lot of, there's some municipalities, Ames would be a perfect example, where their housing and rental code defines what multi and single family are. So that way they could keep, 6 people from renting a single family house, 6 unrelated people. I might be wrong, staff can correct me, but I'm currently unaware of Des Moines having a similar provision in their ordinance or their rental code. So it's all well and possible for folks to rent a single family home and have mom, dad, grandma, aunt, uncle live there and still be in compliance with the rental code. So it appears to me that the current tenants, who are very nice people and aren't a problem, and I'm still reeling from the remark that Mr. Weiland implied about the neighborhood. It's very possible for a family to coalesce their income in a nice single family home and give the income Mr. White needs to keep this a viable property for his business without adding another family in this adjacent rental unit and adding the nuisances that it will create. The other thing, and these might seem paltry, but if you all live in neighborhoods and you want to be good neighbors, snow removal is really important in that neighborhood. Roosevelt kids walk. Oh, I knew I'd go over 5 minutes.
Kind of
a problem I have.
You can say wrap up, one sentence, that's
What's
it.
that?
I was just gonna let you finish your sentence.
Oh, I was just going to say, snow removal on the sidewalks is a problem there too, and adding additional tenants would exacerbate maybe the responsibility for who has the responsibility for shoveling the sidewalks, just little things like that.
Thank you very much. All right, is there anyone else that would speak in opposition? And I guess if there's several people, if you would like to line up, maybe that way we can kind of get a feel for making sure everyone has been heard.
Chris
Name and
Nauman.
address, please.
Chris Nauman, 920 California Drive. I just had 2 points, mainly keeping the characteristics of the circle and then also blocking the traffic from the multiple cars that are there. I walk my dogs throughout my neighborhood every day, 3 times a day, and there's always a lot of cars pulling up and going in and out of here, so I'm a little concerned from that perspective.
Thank you very much.
Kevin Saunders, 920 43rd Street. Just a quick story. My wife and I moved into the neighborhood in 2000 with the expectation that we would finish our graduate school and leave. We've been there 13 years, love the neighborhood, love the schools, love the people in our neighborhood. And for us, we agree with, at the time, the adjustment board conversation that a change in this nature would affect the attractiveness of the neighborhood to families like us. We've taken an NFC loan to add on to our property. It's our home. And so for us, the issue does not come down to who lives in the main property, as is suggested tonight. But for us, it becomes, it's a very different situation if it's an owner-occupied and then they're renting the other area. And so for us, I agree with the speaker before me that it does affect the character of the neighborhood and the attractiveness of families. And so I would ask you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Name and address, please.
Peggy Russell at 900 43rd Street. I'd first like to make one comment that the Board of Adjustment hearings did establish that at the time that the property was purchased, that the assessor site did list it as a single-family home and not as a duplex. So I understand that there were some misunderstandings during that purchase, but the assessor site was fairly clear in terms of the zoning and use. And then I would like to speak. I've lived in the neighborhood for nearly 20 years. And, you know, we've seen a few changes, but lately what we've seen is that this north of Roosevelt area has become where our young couples are moving and having children and going to the, is it Windsor School? No, I don't know. To Hubble School. So we've been really encouraged in the last couple of years. We've said, I've never seen this person walking their baby. I've never seen this person walking their dog. So as part of the city planning, I know that part of the zoning is how do we see our communities and our neighborhoods in the future. And I think this is where Des Moines sees maybe people moving out of East Village coming and staying in the city and not moving to the suburbs. So I would encourage us to keep the plan and the zoning in place and keep the neighborhood intact. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Mike Coyne. I'm Mr. Peggy Russell. Peggy and I are husband and wife. We have enjoyed living there for about 20 years, maybe a little longer, in fact. So I would just, I attended the Board of Adjustment hearing that brought us all here. And the finding was the board upholds a determination of the zoning enforcement officer that use of the property for a two-family dwelling is not a permitted use in the R160 district. While a rental inspection certificate was issued for a second dwelling unit in 2005, it would violate the intent and spirit of the zoning ordinance R160 district regulations to continue to allow the property to be used for a two-family dwelling with the rental inspection certificate. This would continue to jeopardize the essential character of the surrounding residential neighborhood area. And that board voted unanimously to deny the appeal of the officer's findings. There was a caveat by the board chair that said if Mr. White and his fiance did move back into the house and were occupants of the home, there probably would be an allowance for a variance of that one small unit, which has always been the condition. It has always been owner-occupied with a variance on that. It's no longer the situation, and at that point, then Mr. White and his attorney were directed probably to go through the rezoning process, and that's what brought us here today. So, and our neighbors are actually great people. They're very quiet, and I don't know where the bias came from. It was invented in this room because we welcome people of all I'm Irish, and they let me live there. So. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition? Anyone else? Okay. Time for staff and then rebuttal. Oh, I'm sorry, questions?
I have a couple comments.
Yeah, did you get rebuttal? Jason, do you have anything you want to?
Rebuttal for the applicant.
I don't have anything to
Yeah.
add other than.
No,
Oh,
Jason,
I'm sorry.
rebuttal for the
Mr.
applicant.
Wyden
That's
has
exactly
time
what I was
to-
going to
yeah.
suggest.
I was ready to come up, I was just waiting to see if staff had anything to say first, so. All right. Well, as I predicted, the issue is the parking, which was the point of what I said earlier. And since I have been accused of race baiting, I would like to make it very clear that I only mentioned it was a Mexican family because it's a fact, not that I'm accusing anyone of that. So I would like to make that clear, first of all. I'm only talking about the fact that it's a large family. That was my point, and that they have a lot of cars, whatnot. However, that problem has been abated because my client has acquired a number of parking spaces that he is paying for, well, you know, either she or he is paying for, in the commercial lot that is next to the eightplex. And that is now taking care of the parking problem because they have rented out spaces in that lot that are exclusively for the tenants at my client's apartment there. So that problem has been dealt with. But as I said, that seems to be the primary issue, and and there's the garage is a two-car garage, and the additionals, as even the people in opposition mentioned, that there was space to park in the spot in front of the garage as well. So right there, that's 3 cars plus three spots over in the commercial lot. That's, should be more than adequate outside of visitors coming periodically. So that has all been dealt with. And so once again, we return to that, as I'm not going to reiterate all the things I talked about before, but, as I showed the picture, I don't believe that allowing someone who, living in that one small little apartment is going to change things that much, especially when the parking issue's been taken care of, which seems to be the primary issue here. So I don't think that I have anything else really needed to be added, because that seems to be the primary issue that was raised during the opposition. So, any questions?
Okay, thank you very much. So now staff.
We need a motion. Motion, and I've got a couple comments.
Yeah, go ahead, Christie.
Well, this neighborhood, which is Waveland Park neighborhood, actually has a very large number of houses that are rental properties, and houses that do have, split situations like this. I was president of this neighborhood for a number of years, and we actually did an assessment of the number of single-family homes there that are rentals, and it's close to 20%. And so this situation is incredibly unfortunate, because it's just a very difficult situation. One of the things for me, knowing the plan of this neighborhood inside and out and very well, the neighborhood plan does call for a diverse housing stock, which does include multifamily homes and rentals. However, what's really compelling to me about this is that the comment cards that we received that shows the consent map, if I'm not mistaken, there's a significant number of the surrounding or ex-surrounding neighbors that are opposed. I attended the Waveland Park Neighborhood Association's annual meeting, which was last night, and this item wasn't on the agenda as a formal item to discuss, but it did come up during the meeting. All of the commissioners were able to review the comment from Eric Burmeister, who's the president of the Waveland Park Neighborhood Association, and it was the board's consensus, and I'm saying board because it's, again, this particular process, only residents within 250 feet periphery are weighing in on this. But the board determined that considering, knowing about some of the opinions of the surrounding neighbors, that they also didn't support having this be a rental property. I don't know if they were aware or not of what happened and the mistakes that have occurred, and that might be irrelevant anyway. But, again, just for our own process as planning and zoning commissioners, our scope of work is just really actually very narrow. And despite the fact that this is a really, really unfortunate situation, I certainly can't ignore just the consensus of the surrounding neighbors and the neighborhood association board as well. So.
Thank you. Kristen, anyone else? Joanne?
In a lot of older neighborhoods here in Des Moines, we've seen them piece by piece by piece have things like this happen. And it does, maybe not this one issue won't destroy the neighborhood, but if allowed, it could go on. And then we have an awful lot in this lovely old neighborhood, an awful lot of homes that the owners live somewhere else and really don't care. So I don't want something like this to get started at all. Owner occupied's one thing, but, I just can't go with this one at all.
Thank you, Joanne. Any other commissioner comments? Is there a motion?
A second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded to, well, I'm going to read the recommendation. To, number 1, staff recommends that the requested rezoning be found not in conformance with the Des Moines 2020 Community Character Plan. Number 2, that the staff's recommendation denial of the requested amendment to the 2020 Community Character Future Land Use Designation from low-density residential to low-medium density residential. And Part C, that the staff has recommended denial of the requested rezoning from R160 to R2 based on a finding that it would not be compatible with the surrounding predominant R160 zoning of the surrounding neighborhood properties. At this time, it has been moved and seconded to follow the staff's recommendation. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right arm. And Kathy, I'm going to abstain on this one. So that recommendation has been approved.
Again, I would just want to clarify, this is a recommendation to our city council. City council on April 21st would set the date of hearing for the first meeting in May and would hold a hearing themselves on the zoning. They'll receive the recommendation from the commission, but the decision on the zoning is the council's decision. Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 10. This is a request from the Des Moines Airport Authority, represented by Brian Belt, to rezone property located at 6215 Fleur Drive, and the subject property is owned by the city of Des Moines. Jason Bill.
Yes, Chair, members of the commission, Jason Van Essen with the city's planning staff. The aerial showing the subject property, this is along the east side of Fleur Drive, north of Army Post Road, close vicinity of the airport proper. The proposal, there's no proposed changes to the actual parking here. Tonight, what really is causing the need to rezone the portion of the lot that's in the highlighted area. Just point out that most of the lot is commercially zoned. We just have a portion here that is residentially zoned. There's a project that they're wishing to do, which involves improvements to this existing access and then a additional service access that I have a better graphic to show you that would just be for employees for service of the area. Those are two additions. So we're not really talking about a new use. We're not really talking about additional parking. It's just a couple of points of egress that are driving the need for rezoning. So this is the response map, cards and letters being passed around. It does require a supermajority at City Council. Just a couple of quick photographs. This is looking down the street towards the east with the parking lot to the right, to the south. This is the entrance, the easternmost that right now, or what the proposal is for that to be converted to a canopy structure. Constructed, and that this would allow or be a secondary point of egress to the parking area for customers. Right now we have this spot, and we have this spot as a more of a service-oriented area, with the service spot being moving down to the third. So all this is doing is creating a little more function. They were directed by our Traffic and Transportation Division to have this lined up. This entrance is actually in the commercially zoned area. The canopy structure may possibly, the footings of it could possibly extend into the, it appears does actually, if you zoom in into the R170 zoning area, but primarily the driver of this is this service entrance that is clearly within the commercially zoned area. That's the driver of the need to rezone the property. That really is all the points I really wanted to hit. We had, there's a lot of opposition and concern about traffic, but from kind of the perspective of land use, this is a very straightforward kind of case. So I really don't have much to add. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Jason? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Jason, why again do they need to add this one to the east?
This parking lot expanded prior to, the zoning ordinance at one time allowed you by right to extend so far into a commercial parking lot to extend into a residential area. That's how this occurred. So it's there, the parking in itself is there legally. But now to allow this, this additional access to expand that, that is something, this access point can't be added without changing to the commercial zoning. So even though, that's why I was kind of saying that this is very kind of a simplistic from a land use standpoint, because we're really talking about adding a driveway to an existing use. So the points of consideration, which I think mostly, or concern, would be really about traffic flow. And that's where I think you're getting some pushback or concern from neighbors.
Is there a one-way in and out, or is this both way?
And where I was heading is that the bulk of the traffic would be handled by these two entrance points, which are commercially zoned currently and lined up with an existing commercial parking lot. And that this is just a service drive for infrequent access by employees to provide for service purposes.
I guess I'm just wondering, with the overwhelming red, how big a deal is it if they don't do the one to the east?
I can't speak, I'd let the applicant speak to their.
Are you Mr. Bell? At this time, we'll ask Mr. Bell, who is representing the Airport Authority.
Hello. My name is Brian Belt, Director of Engineering at the airport. Business address of 5800 Fleur Drive here in Des Moines. I'm going to reference the layout there on most of my speakings. I'm going to give you a little background of why this project came to fruition. The airport is growing like crazy the last couple years, which is a great thing for the Des Moines area. With that, we were getting a lot of congestion on our front curb of unnecessary vehicles. So we just completed a huge wayfinding project here to try to pull traffic off of the front drive, getting people that are using our economy lots to basically make their decision point on Fleur. So the new wayfinding signs actually make the decision point on Leland and Fleur right there. So the current lot that's being discussed here is Economy 1. You can make that decision if you're heading southbound to enter Economy 1 off Leland or Fleur. We're trying to just, I guess, minimize that. If you want to get to other economy lots, 2 and 3, you basically head west of that intersection, not shown on this drawing. So we had a consultant come in about a year and a half ago. They said with that wayfinding, you should probably add another entrance off that Economy 1 lot to get into it, since we're directing a lot of our traffic to that intersection. So currently, what I'm going to show you here, this is an entrance only. It's a 2-lane entrance off Fleur. So any vehicles heading north on Fleur usually take that to get into the lot. This current exit, it's an exit only, 2 lanes. So what we're proposing is adding another 2 entry only. So that'd be an entry only point there. We would install new revenue equipment, also with a canopy over the top to protect our investment, and also the passengers to protect them from environmental factors. So this service entry lot, it's a manual entry lot. It will be gated, a manual gate, hardly ever used. The only reason that we install it is to get in any oversized equipment. Snow removal, which we rarely do. We actually leave our snow removal equipment inside the lot. However, if we ever have to get in a huge front-end loader, we would bring in that through that entry point. If we ever have to do any resurfacing or digging due to subdrains, things of nature, we would bring the construction equipment through that entrance, which is very rare. So I guess the real question is, I'm just basically trying to accomplish getting the whole lot, the whole Economy 1 lot, classified as C2. Just bare minimum explanation here. But I'd be more than glad to answer anybody's questions.
Thank you. Yes, Joanne, go ahead.
This is already being used as a long-term parking area, am I right?
That is correct. It's classified as our Economy 1 lot. It is our lowest price lot.
But I mean, I'm not interested
Oh, sorry.
in all of that. It is already being used for what it is intended for. You're just adding an entrance.
That's correct. And actually, I'm going to point to it. This entrance is there.
Yes.
We actually just manually have it barricaded off. We don't function. We don't have any revenue equipment there at all. We just don't use it as of today. We just like to turn that existing entry lanes, put revenue equipment on it so people could enter.
Okay, I don't see a problem.
Any other questions, Mr. Bell?
I have a question. You said that the lot would be used with the X's across it for heavy equipment. Where is that heavy equipment being stored now?
No. What I wanted.
It's snow removal, I thought I heard.
No, what I'm trying to point at is this entrance would allow for larger equipment to get into the lot and exit the lot.
To maintain the lot, or I understood you'd be parking there?
No. That equipment is our field maintenance equipment that parks over at our structure on the south side of the airport. That equipment might come in occasionally to grab a box blade, push snow around. Actually, we don't haul the snow out of that lot. We actually blow the snow over here to the south into the grass field. So there'd be no hauling, no commercial trucks in and out on Leland.
Tim?
Madam Chair, the canopy that you said you would be erecting a canopy for to protect your interests. What interest are you talking about under the canopy, and how tall will the canopy be?
Canopy, we usually put a clear height of 13 feet. It would match the existing 2 canopy structures that are already in, right there. The revenue equipment that we have, SCADATA, it's very expensive, I'd like to say. So putting a canopy over protects it from the sun, weather, just extends its life. We get more return on investment. And again, it also protects the passengers as they're leaning out of the car to pull tickets to get in. Protects them from the rain, the snow, things of that nature, sleet. No. The hatched area will be for parking stalls only. It currently already is. It's just that we're trying to get the whole lot zoned to C2.
Any other questions? Do you guys have something?
Roger was just reminding me again, the canopy that's being discussed is in the existing commercially zoned area at the existing drive. So it doesn't require rezoning to do those things. This zoning is totally centered on the addition of this service drive to the farthest east drive.
If I can, I'd like to add one other comment. We did do a study on how many vehicles enter this lot due to the fact that this is the only exit point, and most people are going to go to Fleur. So we didn't want to cause a backup from Fleur to this exit point to cause any traffic issues. During our peak hours, of when vehicles leave this, there is 5 cars that leave an hour. So we don't see a congestion, I guess, is what we're trying to say, is if people are entering Leland and exiting in the airport size.
I was going to comment that most of the times I'm the only guy in the shuttle.
If I could make a suggestion, that is the best lot to park in, because when you enter the lot, a beeper actually beeps to the shuttle to go pick you up, and they usually pick you up at your car. So.
Good to know.
And then if we pass this,
It'll be faster. Okay, any other questions, Mr. Bell? Thank you, sir. At this time, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ted.
Are you okay with all the staff recommendations?
Correct, yes.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. At this time, we will ask if there is anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this proposal. Anyone who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak against? And name and address, please.
My name is Larry Scott. I live at 2832 Park Avenue, Des Moines. I'm here tonight representing the Airport Holiday Inn in 1911 Leland and several neighbors that couldn't be here tonight. We're here tonight to speak against this proposal by the airport. And we understand that the airport is a vital part of our neighborhood. I've lived there my whole life. But that does not mean, and we understand that does not mean that everything they want to do is right and that everything they hope to do is good for the neighborhood. I wish tonight that everything I'd heard from Brian was true, but it's not. And I will go over some of the details. We are against this proposal for all the obvious reasons. Too much traffic, unsafe for kids, unsafe for pedestrians. It lowers property values, and I could go on and on and on regarding traffic and the problems that it causes. But what really upsets us, and why someone mentioned was a solid red around this project, is because of the way they hide what they really want to do. We didn't hear tonight from the city the truth, and we haven't heard from Brian yet the truth. What they really want to do is to turn Leland into just another busy commercial street. And they want to do this right in our residential neighborhood. The truth is that they want to close the only entrance to this lot. You didn't hear that tonight. Feel free to ask them if I'm not wrong. They want to close, let me repeat, they want to close the entrance on Fleur Drive. And when that closes, they're going to have this huge parking lot entering off of Leland and exiting off of Leland. Now that may not sound like a lot of traffic, but when I asked Brian at the meeting last week, how many cars does that lot even park? How many cars can you park in that lot? He said he really didn't know, but he's about 500. Well, the truth is it's 757 spots. And when he closes Fleur, which he fully admitted after we drug it out of him last week, and he makes a new entrance on Leland across from 5 homes in a residential area, and then exits 757 cars also on a residential street, Leland Avenue, we're going to have a mess. That's why it's solid red around this project. Besides that, they want to go deeper into the residential and put in a maintenance gate. What that means, we're not sure. I have seen things like snowplows stored in that corner. Not very often, but it happens. How do they present these facts that I've just presented to us? They don't. You can look at the March 14th notice You can look at the March 24th notice. You can read your own agenda tonight. And what's your agenda say? B, number 10, to allow a secondary entrance and canopy improvements to the existing long-term parking lot for Des Moines. Secondary entrance. If we were talking about a secondary entrance, we wouldn't be here tonight. It's going to become the primary entrance because the Fluor primary today entrance disappears. I would surmise that what the airport has today works. They have a beautiful entrance off of Fluor Drive, which is where their traffic is. What they're trying to do now is tell us that once Fluor Drive closes, the entrance, they want to funnel everyone that's coming off of the Highway 5 bypass, going north to the airport, onto Leland Avenue. They want to funnel everybody coming south on Fluor onto Leland Avenue. So the main entrance for a 757-car parking lot will be right where they propose, next to the residential area. That's what we're against. All they need to do is take that new entrance, move it up. I could even leave it on Leland if they would promise to leave Fluor open. But that's not what they want to do. And when I'm done, feel free to ask Brian if that's not the truth. One more thing. I know this board exists to protect neighbors and neighborhoods, and I appreciate that, and that's why I'm here. And the agenda says on Part A that your job tonight is to see that the proposal is in conformance with the 2020 Community Character Plan. As I read this plan, its overall purpose is to make sure that any changes to parking, traffic, streets, etc., enhances the quality of life for its people and neighbors. Less traffic, quieter streets, bike lanes, pedestrian paths, etc. Please ask yourself if this proposal meets those objectives. Please ask yourselves if you would want to live on Leland once they close Fluor Drive entrance. I ask you to remember that this board is here to protect neighborhoods, and I would ask that you vote with that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'd be here happy to answer any questions, or you might want to talk to Brian first.
I think we have another speaker.
If I could comment. I know you referenced the notice and the agenda on the item on the agenda tonight. I did want to point out that the staff report for the item does reference that existing drive is what's being converted to the canopy, and the additional drive is for service only.
No, you're misunderstanding. He used the word secondary entrance tonight, the staff. And what he's talking about, he wants you to believe that Fluor Drive stays like it is, the main entrance.
That's fine, that's the comment to them, but you were
Right.
claiming that the staff, it says secondary entrance, and you're saying it would just be the primary entrance?
Correct.
Okay,
With an additional entrance for maintenance
okay.
farther east.
Thank you.
Correct.
My name's Lowell Scott. I live at 6562 50th Avenue, Norwalk, Iowa, and I'll explain why I'm here. My father owned the property at 1911 Leland until he passed away last month, so I'm now an owner of that property. We're against this for several reasons. We went to the meeting at the airport that they invited us all to attend, and in the course of that, we kept asking why. I mean, if you're not changing any use, why are you worrying about changing the zoning? And we were told, we heard tonight initially, this doesn't have anything to do with anything, but in fact it does. They cannot do the driveway where the existing driveway is on Leland. It's too close to the residential zoning. That must be changed to C2, or they have to shift the driveway west a minimum of 10 feet. That's what they don't want to do. There's a transformer there, there's a drainage ditch there. They don't want to spend the money. And it's not a secondary drive. Brian himself referenced this consultant a year ago that they want a decision point at the intersection of Fluor and Leland. All their signage that they've recently put up on Fleur Drive is guided to that. And the decision is not to turn off a driveway on Fleur. That drive will become eliminated. It's not a primary entrance. It's the only entrance. The other one is only an exit. So there will be one way in and one way out, both of which will be on Leland Avenue. Nothing will any longer exist off of Fleur Drive. They cannot do it unless you approve this zoning change without moving it further west, which would be further away from the residences that are on Leland Avenue. That's why they're all solid red. They feel they've been misled. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition? Mr. Belt, you do have an opportunity for any rebuttal. You'd like to make comments?
Thank you. I'd like to address the closing of the entrance on Fleur. The consultant that we had a year and a half ago, that was their suggestion to close the entrance on Fleur. I will tell you that our executive director that just left 2 months ago was adamant that that entrance will not close. I will tell you that the current director has said that that entrance will not close. That's all I can answer today. I cannot tell you what the executive director will decide tomorrow, a month down the road, 2 years. I can't tell you what the airport board will decide tomorrow, a month, or 2 years down the road. As of today, it stays. So I'd also like to clarify the numbers. It's great that the Scott brothers throw out that the lot does hold about 800 cars. We could talk about occupancy rates. That lot maybe 50% at the time, so we're down to 350, 400 cars. Our study was done at peak periods, which is in March, during spring break, when that lot basically does fill. The exits don't change, the amount of entries don't change. We're talking 5 cars max leaving at that exit in an hour. So after that 1 month goes away, it becomes less. So that's all I wanted to review. Any other questions brought up from comments?
Staff, any?
I just want to clarify, the previous speaker had mentioned that there's a setback requirement, and in the parking districts, there's a 10-foot setback of parking from a residential district. So I think that's where the reference of the 10-foot, having to shift it 10 feet might be. The applicant can seek a variance to that requirement from the Board of Adjustment. They've not pursued that yet, but that is an option that is available to them if the zoning is not approved. They could seek a variance to the 10-foot separation and put a driveway as shown on this drawing for an entrance into the building. So I just want to clarify what the comment about where the 10-foot was coming from on that. I also want to point out there is an expansion of the hotel that's occurring just to the north that is being built, and I would assume that there's increased traffic using that drive, that will be using that drive right across the street for the hotel in the very near future with the expansion that's occurring of the hotel. That may be generating some traffic on the street, also additional traffic on the street. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Belt. Commissioner comments? Joanne?
I've lived in the area. I grew up close to this area here, and it really is a lovely neighborhood. And it seems to me that the lot has encroached enough onto the neighborhood. So I'm just not really liking this whole thing. There's still plenty of space, I think, for them to put another entrance. And I would not like to see Fleur Drive closed. That would be the nastiest thing they could do to the neighborhood. And he says right now it won't, but I can't tell you what's going to happen down the road. So that's a little too iffy for me. So, I mean, I can't go with this.
Thanks, Joanne. Any other comments? Ted?
I have a question for staff. I don't know if it's for Roger or for Mike, but if we were to add to the staff recommendation that Fleur had to stay open, is that enforceable? How long can that be?
I'll let Roger answer that.
Could you speak from the mic, Roger? Thank you.
I used to be in front of
And the question is, could they condition the rezoning that's requested tonight on the access from Fleur Drive remaining open? And the question would be, the lot is used in common.
Yes. I mean, if, that could be a recommendation that you make to the city council, that the approval of this is subject to that driveway remaining, that would, and if that was accepted by the city council and became part of the conditions, then it would require a rezoning to change that condition in the future. So all I can say, what I can say is that that is a condition that could be recommended for the rezoning.
Okay. Tim, did you have something?
It seems to me that this is a big project, and it seems to me that the proposal as it stands now has been devised using this rezoning area as a key area of use, without considering the entrance off of Fleur Drive as it is now. I'm hesitant to monkey around with anything, quite frankly, until I see something that answers the neighborhood's questions and I think rightful concerns, and some kind of adjustment to the entrance on Fleur Drive that seems to be key. I'd rather see something concrete rather than leaving the thing up in the air, quite frankly.
Thank you. Ted?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Yeah. And your motion is?
I would move staff with the addition of that our recommendation includes that Fleur stay open, and would hope that council would pass it that way if they pass it at all. Maybe don't put that last part in.
Is there a second to Ted's motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Christine. I will just repeat what the staff's recommendation is that Part A, that they recommend the requested rezoning be found in conformance with the 2020 Community Character Plan, so long as the permitted commercial uses are in support of a public, semi-public use. And B, that the staff recommends approval of the requested rezoning to C2 General Retail and Highway-Oriented Commercial District, subject to any commercial use of the property being in direct support of the Des Moines International Airport and other public, semi-public use, and including the proviso that the entrance on Fleur Drive not be closed per council vote, or just not be closed? That's fine. Not be closed. Any comments or questions?
Yes, I have a comment. What I've heard from the neighbors is the use of the word primary and secondary, and this motion doesn't have anything to do with that. So,
I thought that was the entrance.
but it didn't say primary or secondary.
What if they're equal?
I don't know.
I don't know, I thought it meant that because that there was a possibility that the entrance on Fleur Drive was closed.
I think you could just say second entrance. That's what it is. It's a second entrance being added.
The Fleur entrance is what I said.
Yeah, my opinion is, I think Ted's right. I mean, what I thought I heard the gentleman say in the blue sweater was that it'd be okay with the entrances and exits on the other road, Leland? Sorry, as long as the one on Fleur stayed open. And I realize that's not the dream situation, but that was the compromise I think we heard. And so I would be in support of that.
Of the current motion, and Christine, you seconded it, is that what? Okay.
May I ask a question then to follow up of these two gentlemen?
That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'd like to know what they think of our resolve.
before we vote?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry.
Can you give me a short version of what you're going to vote on? We have no problem with an entrance on Leland. We would like it farther away from the residential area, but we do not want that to be the primary and only. If our concern is leave Fleur alone.
Right.
And my other concern is legally, we work with the airport quite a bit, and we never end up working with the city council. We end up working with the board, which is an independent airport board.
Mm-hmm.
And can you hold their feet to the fire when it comes from you or the council to
I don't think we can.
to guarantee that Fleur will stay open?
The zoning runs with the property. That is land use regulation of the property. We did not cede to the airport
Which is why.
the ability to regulate zoning on the property.
Okay.
Yes, Captain?
Did that answer your question? Give me a short version
Huh?
of your vote.
The
Oh, I'm
staff
sorry.
recommendation is as is, plus we're recommending that they not close the Fleur entrance as it is today.
Okay, Mr. Scott, which Mr. Scott are you?
Larry.
You're Larry, okay. And now the others, Mr. Scott speaking.
My only concern would be...
And what's your first name, sir? Well, thank you.
Because currently, that driveway that they want to make the only entrance on Leland exists, but it's barricaded off with cement barricades. And if this passes as it's written or proposed, I don't know what stops them from just putting cement barricades on Fleur Drive and saying, it exists. We
The
just don't
zoning
think
would
that
prohibit it.
The zoning, yeah.
The zoning would prohibit them from doing that.
Okay, that'd be good.
So is your two, question, are you answering? Okay.
The applicant wants to speak.
Oh, Mr. Bell.
Can I ask a question? Is the whole rezoning issue being caused by the service entrance in the hatched area?
Are you talking about the unreadiness of it?
Well, it not being there, could I borrow that?
Sure. But to answer your question, yes.
All right.
I think that's part of it. I think it's also the possibility of the Fleur one closing.
Right.
There's several things
Here's
at
my
play.
question. So if I take away that service entrance, then the rezoning thing goes away, correct?
You would have to then seek a variance from the Board of Adjustment for your setback for your driveway and move it.
For the canopy?
Is the canopy...
For your driveway, it'd have to be 10 feet from that residential zoning line at a
Even though
minimum.
that driveway's there?
You would have to move it 10 feet.
Okay. So very, all right.
Yeah,
That's what I need.
that choice.
Okay, so are we ready for the motion? Anybody want me to restate it, or you got it? Okay, go ahead.
I have just one little comment. With this change and an encouragement if they want to enhance their approach, they've got a lot of space around that Fleur Drive entrance, and they could make it quite a nice little entrance feature if they felt like it. And I think it's definitely necessary to leave Fleur Drive open.
Okay. Oh, so it's been properly moved and seconded for the staff recommendations with the addition of not closing the Fleur Drive entrance. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. Looks unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, one more to go. But this isn't my longest meeting I've ever chaired. Number 11 is request from ST Investments, represented by Tom Howard. I assume, are you Mr.? You're not Mr. Howard?
But I'm here.
Okay. I was going to say you're hanging in there, though. Represented by Mr. Tom Howard on property located at 200 Southeast 6th. Jason.
Chair, members of the commission, Jason Van Ness, planning staff. This property and the parcel to this, or the other parcel to the south, were rezoned a year or so ago for a development project, multifamily that did not move forward. So that is why this is in the Market District, south of the East Village, in an area we envision, transitioning into an extension of the downtown, a mixed-use urban environment But at this point, a lot of the area still has industrial uses, is zoned industrially, but this happens to be a spot where there was a project that was moving forward. So that's why we have C3B here in this particular site. So that project did not move forward. So we have a business that would like to relocate here. That it's a rental car display. It's an existing business, the Enterprise in the East Village. That C3B does not allow that use, and so they're here to rezone to C3, and then also have their site plan looked at by you as well, kind of putting the processes together. So I'll just flip through a few things here and show the site plan. So we have the subject parcel, response map, cards being passed around, photograph of the existing building and kind of the site looking towards the west. So we have the site plan, East 6, Southeast 6, this market, existing building being reused in this proposal, the development of the parking and some landscaping around it. Just to cut to the chase, we are recommending approval of both the rezoning and the site plan. As typical, we have conditions. And I'm not going to read them verbatim, but the only thing I do want to point out first, with Part A, we believe that the comp plan supports the rezoning. Part B is the rezoning itself. We did have some clarifications on some of the items that we had listed as being allowed, and just from legal with regard to delay deposit services, just in the differences between packaged goods stores and liquor sales. I'm just going to add some of that language, just clarify that to you. I won't read the other conditions. They're coming through from the zoning that was, from the conditions from when this was zoned to C3B. And then on Part C is dealing with the site plan. And this, I believe, the site plan and the conditions that we have in here, I believe it is perhaps the tension point, or a couple points in here where the applicant and staff are not concurring. So I'm going to give this a little more attention. Recommending approval subject to compliance with all administrative requirements, typical language. The site plan must include a provision stating there should be no elevated display of motor vehicles. It's coming out of our design guidelines for vehicle display. The site plan must demonstrate that spaces must demonstrate where, basically where employee customers are going to park and versus vehicle display is going to occur. And then all drive aisles, parking spaces, display areas should be clearly identified in the field, so we can have, so it's easy for enforcement. It's common. Those are kind of common conditions from when we have vehicle display lots. C is that the design ability shall be modified to include a primary entrance oriented towards Southeast 6 with a direct pedestrian connection from the street to the entrance. Our design guidelines for development of downtown overlay, C3B, we're trying to create an urban environment, buildings that frame the street, the front of the street, you have direct pedestrian connection, and that's where that language is coming from. The way the building is oriented right now, the door is over in this area, but we believe it's feasible and reasonable to have an entrance put in here and a sidewalk connecting through. Doesn't mean that this entrance can't go away. We kind of share the same space as people could enter from both directions. I know from my own personal experience, I have walked to Enterprise to pick up a rent-a-car, so people do show up by foot. C is with regard to compliant landscaping standards, including the provision of, I won't read this verbatim, but basically it's street trees, providing street trees in the right-of-way. And then I believe also a Class A sidewalk. 7 is a 4-foot tall urban edge fence that we've been applying to our development in the downtown where we have parking abutting the right-of-way, both we were suggesting along East 6 as well as along Market, which right now, Market Street's not developed, but within the Market district plan, that's envisioned as becoming a street again at some point. So it's important to get those kinds of improvements in now versus, getting to a point where it's too late, you come back in with the street and then you're at a pass. Has some suggestions, recommendation that light poles be limited to no greater than 20 feet in height, that any fixtures used will be black Kim archetype light fixtures. They're similar in style to that. It's kind of the direction we're heading in the downtown with regard to lighting. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Jason, to our knowledge, the opposition is to the entrance being
And-
located to the, or
Yeah,
having an
and
entrance.
Class A
at
and
it.
street trees.
And Class A.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. It appears the applicant's not here, am I correct?
Well, he's here to speak on behalf.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're not Mr. Howard, but you're, okay, go ahead, John.
He's representing, are you representing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well, I better ask him.
Okay.
I'd be happy to let him.
Sure.
Yeah, that's.
I apologize, I thought when you said you were Mr. Howard that
No.
no one was here.
I'm Dane Wright, Wright Construction. In fact, I'm the general contract for Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Also have a property company. I am buying the property from Howard Investments as soon as we get everything approved.
And what's your current address, please?
My address, my home address is 1025 Woodland Drive, Carlisle. Beautiful town.
Okay.
I should have brought some elevation drawings. I thought, did he give you any elevation drawings? They-
Oh, you know what, you did.
Okay. Oh, I got some here. Our plan is to redo the building. Enterprise, sometimes it's cheaper for us to build a new building, but Enterprise never looks at it that way. They always like to revamp something old, so. But our plan is to revamp the whole building, landscape it properly. The issue that was brought up by the village people, they want us to
Boy, we're getting some good ones tonight.
No, they're a nice group. Their main concern was irrigation of the plants, and because the ones we planted down on Locust died, because nobody at Enterprise knows how to water anything. So we plan to put an irrigation system in to keep everything looking good. It'll be a nice project. We'll revamp an old building. There's really not a whole lot of character to the existing building, so we plan on doing something with that. Our plan is to try to meet staff's requirements. There was no opposition by Enterprise to change the door location. So
So you in agreement with staff's
Yes.
recommendations?
yes.
All of them?
All of them?
Yeah, well,
Oh,
I think,
Was it concerned about Class A sidewalk or not? That was,
I don't think that would be
okay.
an issue, so.
It was just hearsay apparently.
All right.
The door, you wouldn't have to eliminate the door on the south elevation. What we're talking about is adding an entrance door where the window is on the east elevation in this.
Yeah, we might look at it both ways, see which, because it'd be kind of nice to have the door on that south location too, because that's where the majority of the people are going to park and come from. So.
Very good. Thank you. Joanne, did you get your question answered?
Yeah, your urban edge, that's just for on streets, on the street sides, is that correct?
Be the north and the east.
North and the east, and that's the reason it's just supposed to be on the street side?
You talking about the fence?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did have a question about the one going on the closed street.
Along the south?
Yeah. If, and I guess this again would be something to ask staff again someday. If that street does open up, could we get access to that street? I mean,
You would need a site to amend your site plan. but
okay.
yeah.
But I mean, as far as now, I don't think there's any reason to worry about it till
Oh,
you do
yeah,
something
absolutely.
about it.
Yeah,
So,
there would be a mechanism to do so.
yeah, that'd be, Other than that, we're,
If you were to open that street, then you could put your fence along that street
Yeah.
also, but it would be after the fact, not.
yeah, we'd still put the fence up now, and maybe later when the street is open back up, we'd like to be
I
able to.
suggest that, because, you know, the south side always gets skipped. So it would be very nice to have it go around the whole area.
That's a good one, too.
Skip? Skipped, oh, and we always get skipped. So, anyway, yeah, that's my only thought, was that it would be nice to have it on the south side, too.
Yeah, I think it looked good, and with the way we talked, we're showing a monument sign there now. It's probably something that we won't do, it'll probably go, where's the elevation drawing? You guys got it.
I folded it up. Here, I'll give them. I was going really fast.
You were doing well there.
Ted turned and looked at me, I got nervous.
Like we lost our video. Okay, oh, there it goes. Our plan is to, we're kind of thumbs up there. That's their plan, is to put their signage on both corners, so we'll meet all the sign ordinances and everything like that.
Very good.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Kathy, could you put the staff, any commissioner comments? Could you put the staff recommendation, because I'm not going to read all this. Can we put it back up?
Yeah, I think.
Or, I'm sorry, not Kathy. But- So is there a motion? Tim moves, staff. Thank you, Dory. And here it is.
Pardee moves staff. Christine Pardee moves staff.
There were a lot of people that. And it was seconded by Dory. And so here's the recommendation. There's a Part A, a Part B with many points to it. Part C, just for clarification, what's that line edited out there?
This, there's a typo or a
Okay.
misprint by our copier. That line is exactly this line.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sure, I think it was copied.
Okay, and is number 9 the final point?
I believe, yeah.
So it's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor of the recommendation, please do like Christine's doing. Raise your right arm, right hand. It is unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir, for hanging in there. We are now on other items. Are there any committee reports? Great. Are there any director reports?
Just one quick item. Monday night, actually, on Monday night's council agenda, there will be an item for a moratorium on electronic signs while we're working on these revisions to the ordinance. We did have one inquiry about taking down a billboard on MLK Junior Parkway and putting a couple of digital billboards up on Merle Hay Road, which was the exact group that came and talked with us about that concern. So we are in the process of writing the ordinance. We anticipate May 1st, you'll be holding a public hearing on that change, and that the council will hold their hearing on May 19th. So it's a very defined, short-term moratorium, just so we don't, until we know what the final rules are going to be, we don't have any permits issued for things that would be contrary to what we were working towards. So that'll be on Monday night, and we've notified all of the, Clear Channel's the largest billboard company. They're not the applicant that's wanting to do this. It's actually one of the smaller entities that has about 8 billboards in the city, and they don't have any other billboards on Merle Hay corridor. And the whole idea was to try and get them to remove a billboard on the same corridor where they were doing the conversions. So anyway, that'll be on the council agenda for Monday night, and that was it.
Mike, can you tell us anything about the Yonkers building?
I cannot. I don't have any information on it other than that.
Good
It's been in
question.
the paper by the city.
Wasn't me.
I'd like to say Jackie did a nice job at a marathon meeting.
Oh, thank you, but this is not my record. As my school board colleagues will happily share. Why do I need that? Why?
Where have you been?
look, you found your style. Make you realize if you open your eyes, you can change your views. Walk the city block in these shoes. Gray sky turn blue. Change your view. Well, I can change your view. And I walk the city block in these shoes. I did something old for something new. Change your view. Walk the city block in these shoes. Gray sky turn blue. Change your view. Well, I can change your view. And I walk the city block in